Okay, so today we are diving into a story that just absolutely exploded in real time. We're talking about one of the biggest comedians on the planet, the gig of a lifetime and, well, a few old jokes that almost brought it all crashing down. This is the story of Kevin Hart and the Oscars.
And it all really boils down to this one pretty powerful question. In this super connected world we live in, what's the real price of a bad joke? Is it just a little public embarrassment, a missed opportunity, or is it something way bigger? That's what we're going to get into.
So, to really understand the fall, you first have to appreciate just how high up he was. And for a comedian, let me tell you, there are very few gigs higher than this one.
Look, for Kevin Hart, this was not just another job. This was the absolute peak. I mean, think about it. You're being asked to host Hollywood's biggest night. You're following in the footsteps of legends like Johnny Carson, Billy Crystal. It's the ultimate validation that you've made it. For him, it was a total dream come true.
But you know how these things go. Almost as fast as that dream was announced, a complete nightmare started to unfold. A reckoning was on its way, and it was all fueled by words from his past.
And the speed of this was just unreal. On day one, Hart is on top of the world, announcing his biggest career win. Literally 24 hours later, old, really offensive tweets about the LGBTQ+ community get dug up and start going viral. By day three, it wasn't just noise anymore. It was a full-blown public crisis, an absolute firestorm.
The reaction online was just immediate and so intense. That word canceled, it was everywhere. People were hurt, they were angry, and they were demanding he be held accountable. The whole thing just exploded into this huge debate. Were these old jokes enough to make him unfit to host a massive global event like the Oscars?
You know, in any crisis, your first response is everything. And, well, Hart's initial reaction only poured gasoline on the fire. It created this huge standoff between him and, well, a very, very angry public.
And this right here is where things got really stuck. The public, for the most part, wanted one thing: a fresh, sincere apology that actually acknowledged the pain his words had caused. But Hart's first move? He got defensive. He basically said, hey, I already apologized for this years ago. I'm not doing it again. And to a lot of people, that just came across as defiant, maybe even dismissive, and it made the whole situation so much worse.
But then, something had to give. The pressure was mounting, the damage was getting worse, and Hart made a pivot. This was the absolute turning point in this whole saga.
So instead of digging his heels in, he completely changed his approach. First, and this was a huge move, he stepped down from hosting the Oscars. Then, he finally gave that sincere public apology people had been asking for. He even took it a step further, acknowledging how insensitive he'd been in the past and promising to actually listen and learn from the community he'd hurt.
And this was really the heart of it all. He stopped trying to defend the old jokes and just started taking ownership of the impact they had. That public admission, saying flat out that he was wrong and that the words were insensitive, that was the key that really started to shift the whole conversation.
So, what happened after all that? What were the real long-term consequences of this whole mess, and maybe more importantly, of his apology? Let's take a look at the aftermath.
Yeah, the outcome was complicated. On the one hand, he definitely lost the Oscar gig. That's a massive professional hit, no question. But on the other hand, by finally taking responsibility, he started to change the story. A lot of people, even some folks he defended, saw it as a real positive example of someone willing to grow. So yeah, the consequences were serious, but his career was far from over.
In the end, this whole thing became more than just another cancel culture story. It really turned into this high-profile case study on how to handle a public failure. Not by dodging the blame, but by actually choosing to be accountable and showing you're open to growth.
Which leaves us with one last, really interesting question to think about. In this day and age, where your past is basically searchable forever, and public opinion moves at the speed of light, who really gets to decide when an apology is enough? Who decides when forgiveness is on the table? That's definitely something to chew on.